Hi, everyone. I am Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment. Welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today, we're talking with Jim Logger, Senior Vice President of Sales, Penske Truck Leasing, and Gregg Mangione, Senior Vice President, Maintenance. Gentlemen, how are you doing? Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Happy to connect and catch up on what's happening in the leasing world. We'll get started with the first question here. How have you seen application demands and duty cycles from your customers, your leasing customers, shift over the past 4 or 5 months as they've adapted to the current climate? Jim, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, we saw a lot of equipment idled early on. We've started to see that come back. Some industries stronger than others. We still see some slowness in some places, but the other side of that coin is some industries and some businesses have picked up considerably. So actually, running above normal, if you will. So, I don't think anybody's been unaffected by it, but we have seen. So Jay, we've seen customers, want a little more flexibility, I guess you could say. We have been able to take units that weren't running the miles that we originally projected and extend some of those a little bit, push those out a little bit longer, because they're going to have more useful life. We are seeing the desire, the need, again, for some more term flexibility. We've been able to take existing assets from our rental fleet and convert those to leases on a little bit shorter term, a little bit better terms. And that seems to have helped. So, customers have responded to that. We've seen fleets, that just frankly have too many units. They had 10, they need 5. And we have a program to help with that too. We actually buy customers' trucks. We'll dispose of them and lease them newer assets, maybe fewer assets if that's what they need, to try to right size their fleet, to help them get the fleet where they need it. But certainly it's had big impacts. And our goal is just to help our customers and help the marketplace in general, to listen to them and try to meet their needs as best we can.
Right. Gregg, what about your view?
Yeah, Jason, obviously with the change in utilization, where we challenge ourselves is how can we very quickly modify our maintenance practices, really for the benefit of our customers. We had customers that, like many companies, were trying to develop new protocols, and they did not want to bring the trucks to us, right? And our preventive maintenance program, like many, is based on utilization, generally mileage and time. We've got an approach we call a dynamic PM, and while we were heading in this direction, we greatly accelerated, really depending more on things like mileage and engine hours and time, and that allowed us to really, better track our maintenance around the utilization of the vehicle, which went like this, right? So, we were pretty successful at reducing the need for customers to have to bring the equipment to us. It's interesting, I would say that continues, although the utilization of the equipment has obviously come back. So it's the opposite in some cases. Now we're chasing after customers because the truck is due for preventive service. We know they need it badly. Again, we're seeing some real positives in the economy. We want to keep those trucks running. So we're pivoting a little bit, but it's been a real interesting and I think, as everybody knows, a dramatic change in how the units went from being parked, and we talked about things about like maintaining batteries and tire pressure, to seeing them all rapidly come back into service.
Right. And not even that, even a couple weeks before that dip, I think kind of in mid-April, when the dip happened, I think kind of toward the end of March, we were hearing reports that, especially with the hours of service exemptions and all the things that went into there, is trucks were running longer and harder than ever before because they were allowed to.
There was that.
And then it went zoom.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. There was that surge in everybody stocking up, right?
Right. So yeah, we've been tracking. I'm sure you all have a great view of it, of how those intervals have shifted from huge utilization down to, as you said, batteries and parked trucks. Before we get, I do want to touch on that. I just want to take a step back for a minute and follow up on something Jim, you alluded to here. In terms of how fleets are using their trucks and right-sizing their fleets, what advice do you have for fleets that are still navigating that?
Yeah, so our typical customers and our way of going to market, we're not bound by a warranty period. We don't do a short cycle turn or anything. We typically try to take that vehicle out to its full useful first life, if you will. So I'd say most of our customers haven't been, hugely impacted or had to rethink how they structure their fleet. Again, because we're looking to push that out, to full term anyway. We provide obviously the maintenance and the processes around that. We have substitute vehicles that we offer customers if those vehicles go down. So situation has been the impact on cash flow and capital. We see a lot of businesses wanting to preserve capital, needing to preserve capital, not knowing what's coming. So I think that's impacted sales certainly, and I think it's brought business to in companies to leasing that may not have looked at leasing in the past, because they can do that without any capital outlay. We run operating leases, and that allows a company to hang on to their cash, whether that's because they feel like they might need it, in an emergency like we're seeing now, or maybe just to invest it in other aspects of the business so they can continue to grow their business or reach new markets or whatever that might be, or have to make a shift in a situation like this. So that seems to be a big driver as well, and it seems to be opening up the market to operating leases in this current state that we're in.
I see. Perfect. I mean, I imagine it creates some sort of flexibility too. I mean, we've seen reports of fleets that pushing equipment into applications that they might not be properly spec for, right? The maintenance impacts there. So definitely having that flexibility is a bonus there.
And we have 750 locations, so we've seen a lot of customers shift equipment, move equipment. Things were the Northeast took the hardest hit early on in this thing, and we saw a lot of customers kind of shift to places where they were doing business and then shift back. And our system allows for that movement of equipment, that flexibility. Our processes are the same, our facilities are set up the same, so moving around doesn't really impact the customer either. They don't have to relearn a system or a network. It's kind of all the same, if you will.
Right, for sure. Gregg, going back to the maintenance side of things, I think you alluded to this earlier too, but how have you had to adapt your maintenance practices to keep both your technicians and then any drivers or fleet customers that come in safe? And then in terms of the overall kind of maintenance trends you're seeing as equipment utilization kind of goes all over the place as we deal with this?
Okay, so stop me because I have a lot to offer. Right?
Let it go.
Well, I can tell you first and foremost, we put an incredible amount of focus on keeping our associates safe. So there was a lot of energy, and now we're through actually, I'll say the second evolution of this as we fine-tuned it. But as early as late March, things around our processes for sanitizing in our shops, some of those common touch points for technicians, staggering shifts, right? So we talk about social distancing. So we would, how do you end up with not everybody in the locker room at the same time? So we had to stagger shifts with people coming in and when they leave. I talked about social distancing. Something we call a daily stand-up or like a shift huddle is what we call it. We're to the point where we've got our own internal decals that we're laying out on the shop floors for the technicians to make sure it's really, I think, again, we all experience this. There's just this ingrained human habit of when you're talking to somebody, getting close to them, right? And just having to reinforce that. And then, addition to that, mask wearing and the like. And then even with our vendors, changing protocols, something like the tool truck coming on the facility and things like that, our parts deliveries and the like. So a lot of effort into that first. At the same time, changes, although I'll say fortunately, I think, our reputation as a company along the lines of where Roger's taken us, and that's just about cleanliness of the equipment at our facilities. But we had to obviously adapt those practices to include sanitization. So on our rental fleet, we have something we call Ready Line Excellence. That's the truck on the front line ready to go but clean. We just very quickly tweaked some of what used to be a degreaser to now something that's sanitized as well. But even that, quite honestly, a lot of work's gone into that. They're very early, that rush to stock up, right? There were supply chain issues. So we would get our hands on a sanitizer that while we knew it sanitized, it quite honestly also did damage to, decals and things on the interior of the vehicle. We've now moved to a point where we've got something that works really well, considering things like we don't think about this as household users, right? Dwell time. I can spray something on there, but if I told you it had to sit for 30 seconds, that's not normally somebody's going to do, right? So we've gotten to a stable state with the chemicals that we use. But the other thing we had to institute, which was a larger change, we just called it touch point sanitization. So when we bring a truck in for service, we're cleaning the common touch points in the cab. When we're done, we do it again before we turn it over to the customer. To the point that we even put the decal in the window, or hang tag, in the window. So when you're approaching that vehicle as a customer, you know that it's been sanitized. So that was a big change. The other one, and I think I'll sort of talk in the future as well, the biggest change, I think, has been our intake process. So, standard, I'll say to maintenance, right? A driver would bring a vehicle to a service department in various forms, tell them what's written up on the vehicle, right? You take it from there. That's something that over time, quite fortunately, we had adapted to things like a kiosk and more electronic feeds from customers' DVIR systems, but there's still this face-to-face interaction. And again, thinking, customers did not want to do that, and we want to minimize that for the safety of our associates. We tried to adapt that process. So we did and continue to do quite a bit of that in the yard. So as the driver comes in, we have a process where we can greet them, but we've actually just deployed all but a few weeks ago. We have a driver app that's out there, the Penske driver app. We quickly moved to add a module to that allows a driver, when they get to our facility, to check in touchlessly. So all that's left, quite honestly, is the handoff of the keys, and we're even looking into different technologies with that, with electronic lock boxes and things like that. But so changes like that. What's interesting to me is, and we're seeing this early on with the app. Drivers like the convenience, right? If they can drop that vehicle off, and we've already taken the paperwork out of the process, but it's even more convenient for them to drop it and go. Likewise, we can alert them electronically when the vehicle's done. I will not be surprised if post-COVID, right, these things stick. They're a better convenience. Drivers, customers prefer them, but all in all, where I think we've been fortunate is we've long on a road to bringing technology into our service departments. We're pretty able to, adapt or plug into those existing processes. Like I said, we're already pretty paperless. So adding this app didn't take us very long.
Right. I remember, maybe it was about 2 years ago now when I visited one of the shops and we were going through you did the voice PM
Yeah,
system,
I remember.
and I remember the kiosk there. So, we remember how far along, and then I remember the kiosk, and one of the things that stuck with me is getting the odometer reading, right? That was a big deal. Like, we just need them to punch it in and get it. So now if you have the app and they're sitting in the truck and it's staring right there, I imagine that makes that even smoother, and it connects to all the infrastructure digitally you had anyway.
There's still a lot of opportunity, I'll say, in that area, right? Getting folks to enter that when we have opportunities like our connected fleet program, right? We can bring that in from telematics along with a host of other information. But as I said earlier, we accelerated work to basically, we want to bring vehicles in for service based purely on their utilization. And that goes beyond just mileage. I mentioned engine hours. There's approaches with fuel economy. And then depending on the manufacturer, they've got their own condition-based systems that are actually monitoring oil life that we want to leverage. And the systems are there, just connecting them. But I can tell you, I'm sorry I chimed in on mileage because it's been a pretty rich discussion lately. As I said, we moved everything to depend on mileage because that as the fleet utilization dropped, then we didn't have to bring the unit in. And now, certainly with our rental fleet and certain business sectors, it's pretty brisk.
Yeah, for sure. I bet. Jim, any thoughts on there? I mean, I'm a technology connected nerd, so I love all this stuff. But just in terms of what you're hearing about from customers, do you see that technology can kind of be a hurdle sometimes for adoption. Do you see them latching onto this? Are they looking for this? Are they asking you about it? What do you see from your chair?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think a little bit of all that you described. I think most people understand that it's necessary. They need to leverage the technology that's out there if they're going to get ahead and stay ahead. And so they're wanting to adopt. A lot of them, it's difficult. I mean, and frankly, it is. And back to that duty cycle discussion, trucks become obsolete quicker than they ever have in the past because of all of that technology. And we are finding customers that that want the latest version of collision mitigation or whatever that might be. A lot of it, driver safety, driver comfort, things like that. So, it's driving equipment decisions now, like never before, the technology aspect of it. So, and again, I think it's has huge potential. Some of what Gregg started to get into, with helping fleets operate better, more efficiently, and that's what we're trying to do is find ways that we can do that using that data that's there in operationalizing it back to a customer to say, hey, we see an area for improvement here. We think you can pick up whether that's MPG or routing or whatever that might be. And again, I think the possibilities are really kind of limitless there, Jason, around technology.
Right, for sure. And you mentioned the safety features, the creature comforts, and his drivers are spending more time in the truck, right? And dwell times, at least maybe at loading docks and that kind of thing, are still a little up and down and back and forth. Definitely important. I appreciate you two leveraging the video conferencing technology with me today. It's great to see you both. Hopefully we'll be able to get together in person sooner rather than later. And I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon.
We'd love to do that. Thank you, Jason.
Great. Thank you, Jason. It's great.